I'm ready to get into this next section. This is really where the deeper rewiring happens, right?
Let's do it. So let's talk a little bit about reframing, why it's important, and do you have some limiting beliefs? Do I have some limiting beliefs?
None, Sanjeev. Totally V2. Of course.
Let's explore though, right? Let's talk a little bit about what a limiting belief is. And a very simple example is that if you lived in a culture, let's think of something simple, in a culture where everyone believed that apples for some reason are poisonous. You never ate an apple, you never saw anyone eat an apple, and now you're in a situation where apples are the only food that's available, right? And your belief that apples are poisonous is really limiting you. Question is, how do you discover such beliefs and how do you really overcome them? And that's what we're going to talk about. Before we dive into that, let's kind of review what are limiting beliefs that get embedded into a lot of us from early childhood, right? One of the common ones I see is, one of the common ones that was told to me was that you cannot dance. You're not a good dancer. And I personally...
you are a great dancer. I have seen you dance. Tango machine over here.
No, I love dancing, and I had to overcome that limiting belief. But often I find, and you could add to it, I find people who believe they're not good enough in one way or the other, and it limits them. Tom, for example, was in a ditch, and we said one of his beliefs was that bad things always happen to me. Mary, on the other hand, who was more effective in getting out of the ditch, had the belief that, you know, I'm in a ditch and it's a challenge, and I love challenges. It put her in a completely different point of view. So that's kind of any common beliefs that you come across that people have?
Yeah, all sorts of beliefs. A lot of it comes from self-worth.
Right.
You know, people have childhood experiences that deeply impact them around being worthy or being liked or belonging.
Right.
There are often those recurring triggers.
Right. People out to get me. I think a lot of people have that, where they get into a ditch that they need not be because they feel that somebody is out to get them when they're not.
Yeah.
And so good. Let's then talk about your situation.
All right.
And you have a messy house and you're frustrated about it. And could there be some limiting beliefs that are holding you back?
It's interesting reflecting on childhood and going into the belief. I've definitely built an association that messiness is bad. It's wrong. I can hear my mom telling me to clean up my room in the background, right? So that's certainly, there's a deeper belief around that, and that I need order to be productive.
Great. Let's do that systematically. So this whole topic of rewiring, or at least reframing beliefs, has been covered really well by others, and cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, has covered this topic well, but in somewhat of a complicated fashion. But we learn a lot from that. We use some of those techniques, and Byron Katie is a great resource for some of you who want to learn more about this. And so what we have is, in V2PAL that you've been using, a capability called balancing, and particularly reframing. So what I did was I asked Andrew to fill this out. For sake of time, it's already been filled out, and Andrew and I will explore his answers. And if you could pay attention to this, because this is going to be one of your exercises or one of your assignments to do after today, which is using V2PAL, the balancing portion on that, to do a reframe. So let me take you to what we filled out. Andrew, this is, you're looking at a screen of my V2PAL. I filled yours out here because my V2PAL was open. You go to balances and click on that. You see a lot of balances I've done where I was trying to uncover my unhelpful beliefs, or beliefs that I needed to reframe. Previously, you've seen some of my word clouds that we showed you in the last module, and I said that unmindful eating was one of my issues, then being distracted by social media was one of my issues. These are behaviors, and you can do reframing associated with behaviors also. But your first exercise is to focus on emotions. We'll teach you how to reframe your underlying beliefs that are coming in the way of your behaviors or creating unnecessary attachment to desires. Those will come later. So, but let's go take a look at what we did for Andrew here. It says frustrated due to a messy house. I'll click on that. And when I open that, it comes up and gives me this choice. Just for your education, you can pick several balances. I'm picking an emotion, and I've already entered frustrated, messy, because of messy house. But you can see it's prompting me on several other things that I've been frustrated about that I can pick. I must remember to cancel out of this after we are done, because this is not my reframe, it's yours. So
your house is very tidy. Always sent you.
Not if I could help. So let's click again on reframing unhelpful beliefs. And there's several questions you can answer associated with that. The first question is, why do you want to balance this? I typically don't answer that. If you're compelled to answer it, do. But this is the more important question, which says, so what are the underlying reasons for this? And Andrew, what were your underlying reasons for being frustrated by a messy house?
Underlying reasons are I value order,
right,
and that I feel that the messiness, clutter, things in boxes still is distracting,
right,
and pulling me out of my best productivity.
Right. So again, what we do is, and what you ought to do is, whenever you address something like that, you say, does that really have to be? So he says he's distracted by clutter. The question is that a fundamental law of physics that you should be distracted by clutter, or is that a consequence of your beliefs? And can those beliefs, are they helping you? Are they not helping you? And what can you change about that? But let's dive deeper, and that's a lot of what we do. We always dive deeper, and there's this button called This Implies. And if you press it, it opens further, and we pressed it, and it asks another question. And the question is, so what are the consequences of the above? So Andrew said that he's distracted by clutter, he values order, and that's what's frustrating him because he's not getting that. So we ask him what the consequences of the above are, and your answer is?
A lost time, and related to that, lost energy. So it feels like it's taking my time and energy away from me, this situation.
Right. And what are the consequences of that?
Well, it's really feeling disempowered.
Great.
Like this situation is controlling me rather than me being in control of the situation.
Great. So let me take a moment to share some instructions with our dear fellow travelers on this 90-day challenge. So the invitation for you is enter what's a disturbing emotion, and then answer the question, what's the underlying reasons, and then keep pressing the This Implies button and answer the question, what are the consequences of that? What are the consequences of that? Till it makes no sense to answer it. You can go 3 levels deep, 5 levels deep if you like, and you'll see an important self-discovery, an important awareness. And everything you enter here are really beliefs. They're never facts. They rarely are facts. Even something that Andrew entered here, which says, he feels disempowered. Andrew, you probably feel that that's a fact, right? Because you do feel disempowered. So that's one way of looking at it. And then the other question to ask is, do you have to feel disempowered?
No, if that belief isn't true, then I shouldn't feel disempowered by it.
Exactly. So that's your invitation. Then there's a question we ask, if all the above are beliefs, and the question we ask is, are the beliefs 100% true, or do they have exaggeration in it, right? Are they impacted by a belief system? For example, Andrew said that he had a belief system that messiness is bad. Is that belief really disempowering him, or the fact that the house is messy? And one question he should ask is, 2 people in the same situation, which is a messy house, could one be less disempowered than the other? And what does the other person need to do in terms of beliefs and actions to be less disempowered? That's what we are about, right? So that's what we'll now go explore. Make sense?
Great.
Okay, great. Now I have two questions for you, given that you've agreed that there was some amount of exaggeration, in the sense, doesn't have to be that you're should feel disempowered, and two people in the same situation, one could be more effective. So when you actually believe that a messy house is bad for you and has bad consequences, you lose energy, etc., how do you behave?
It's interesting when you think of the ripple, that core of the ripple is that belief, and it goes all the way out to my behavior, which is that I procrastinate,
Right.
Of just not wanting to deal with it.
Right.
Because it's just not, it's overwhelming, it's disempowering, and I end up just not doing it.
Great, great. And how would you behave if you did not believe that? If you didn't believe, say from childhood, that a messy house is bad?
Well, I'd feel better despite that circumstance.
Right.
I'd embrace it, and I guess more relaxation and acceptance.
Right, right. So that's what we have entered here. We've entered that Andrew would have feel better, he would have more energy, would relax deeper. So that's the invitation to you then, is answer these two questions based on your disempowering emotion. How do you behave when you believe the things that you listed above, and how would you behave when you did not, right? Now comes the tough part, or the powerful part, which is reframing, right? So Andrew had a variety of beliefs. His belief, for example, was messy house is disempowering. His belief was that a messy house means less energy. A messy house has to mean waste of time, right? And then we invited him to think differently, because he agreed that it's not really helping him to believe that the house is messy. It is what it is. Is there a more useful position he can take relative to his beliefs? So let's think about that, Andrew, then. Is there another way for you to think about a messy house?
Well, I think the simple one is the alternative belief there is I can be empowered in any circumstance, and it doesn't matter what is around me, I can be in the zone and empowered. And so that comes up right away.
Awesome.
And also seeing it as a challenge that I can embrace. It's like, look, I just moved in, there's things in boxes, but this is a challenge. This is something I gotta work through and make the most of. And yes, it's messy, but let's make it a challenge I'm embracing and turning that awareness on.
Right.
And then another belief would be, it's really not gonna take that long to put things in order. So I have this belief that it's going to take a lot of time. It doesn't necessarily have to take much time really at all. And
Awesome. Awesome.
It's a reframe.
So these are really powerful reframes. And again, invite you to think of more empowering beliefs. And this takes practice, and we'll work with you through the 90 days to figure out. And the community is also there, where you say, this is one of my disempowering beliefs. And the community on Facebook could step up and contribute to what they think should be a more empowering belief. But let's review some of the empowering beliefs that Andrew had. One is he's embracing a challenge. It's usually always a better belief. Whenever there's a difficult situation, we used that before, particularly when we were trying to disengage from desires. So he has a desire really for a cleaner house. And the moment he disengages from that, saying, you know, I actually like this, it's a challenge. It's an opportunity for me to go to the gym, and I'm going to build my muscles. Suddenly that's a more useful belief to have than a belief that says a messy house is bad and I'm screwed, right? My life is over unless somebody else comes and helps me out and fixes the house. Mm-hmm. The second thing you did was you took responsibility, which is, besides taking it as a challenge, you said, I can be effective, right? So you internalized the issue, you became independent of circumstances. So whenever you're looking at a reframe, think about something you could do and something you could control. That's always a more useful belief than a belief that somebody else should do X, Y, or Z, right? So two powerful beliefs or two powerful reframes, And through the 90 days, we'll continue to introduce more standard reframes that help you almost reframe in under many difficult circumstances.
Great. And you know what comes through to me is this, in simplicity, it's at the core of the ripple is this belief, often from childhood, that you're holding on to. You have your awareness switch on bright. You get to see that belief and say, wow, that's not even really true. What's a new empowering belief that can replace that? And once you do that, wow, I feel so much better. I feel so much more empowered. And it's amazing throughout even just one day how often our feelings, our state of energy, our behaviors are all being driven from these underlying beliefs.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
I'm really excited to share this tool with everybody that's in this challenge. And the technology is such a support where if you can't remember all the questions in your mind or you want to pull up a past reframe, it's been really invaluable to me to be able to use it. And I'm glad others will be able to get to do that as well.
Great, great.